presidency, Ghana's historic leadership moment. Oh my God. How many of you follow the swearing in of Mahama? Well, a lot of dignitaries on ground, and you know how it feels when you have a female vice president joining you for the first time, and more so that this is not the first time he's holding such office. It's so good to know. So we want to look at Mahama's presidency and of course Ghana's historic leadership moments today, as I have my guest join me in the studio. And of course, before I introduce my guest, let's go on a quick break. After this break, we'll return and I will introduce my guest as we get into the conversation. still into the conversation, the first conversation for today. We're looking at Mahama's presidency. And as a matter of fact, let's quickly look at this Mahama's presidency. What do you think? My guest in the studio, I said on return, I'm going to introduce him. Bilal Aliyu is a public affairs analyst. It's good to have you in the studio.
It's my pleasure.
Well, let's look at, briefly, let's just look at Mahama's presidency. What does it speak to you? Beginning from the election, okay, down to his swearing in, and what does it speak? What does it tell you as a Nigerian anyway?
Well, looking at the activities of the concluded elections in Ghana, this a situation that other West African countries need to look at and adopt, because the elections were free and fair, and you tend to find out that it was more of like a very tight race between the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, and the past President, John Mahama, who happened to be a one-time President of Ghana and losing to Nana Akufo. So looking at the situation on ground, Ghanaians are very politically mature. You tend to find a high level of political maturity in them, unlike that of Nigeria and other West African countries, whereby the system of voting has to do with the tribal background or the religious background of a candidate, because that's what's going to determine your emergence of winning an election in most West African countries today. So in this case, Ghanaians are all after merit, unlike other West African countries. Dr. Bawumia happened to be the vice president, the past vice president, and was aiming to be the president of Ghana. And the administration was a failed administration based on the fact that Ghana, had and experienced lots of economic setbacks and failure in public service. And the president then, Nana Akufo, was known to be an economist, and same as Vice President Bawumia. Bawumia had the chance of emerging as the first Muslim president in Ghana, and Bawumia and John Mahama are coming from the same northern background. They're coming from the same northern region, and it was a very tight race, but the citizens had no option but to go back and electing Mahama as president of Ghana. So I feel West African countries should adopt this system, electing their leaders based on competency and merit instead of religious or tribal background. And now it seems to be a new way of excellence for Ghana, because John Mahama is coming in with different policies to see how we could implement them to revive the economy at large. Bawumia was known to be a failed economist, in the sense that he is coming from the academic background, because most African people tend to are more on the paper qualification other than that professional experience, because we are based on crafting strategies on paper. The problem that we are having is the execution. When you look at people like Traore, people with coming with less academic backgrounds, but having that experience at large, and you can see how Burkina Faso is turning into now.
We're talking about that. We had a lot of presidents attending this swearing in yesterday. As a matter of fact, what does that spells out? Does it mean the people are maybe attending that program, or accepting or associating or identifying with Mahama because he emerged, or there is a reason why other countries are actually, including our own country, Nigeria, of course. And what do you think should be the take home, what they should learn? Because you talk about Traore and other presidents that were there. It's not just attending. But then what should be the take home? What do they need? What do you think they need to do different in their own country? A takeaway from Ghana's election.
You know, John Mahama was once the president of Ghana, and looking at the situation on the ground, he has that regional spread within the West African nations. You know, that's the more advantage that he has over Bawumia, because Bawumia, when it comes to policies, it's good, but when it comes to that, regional penetration, Mahama has it, and he has had like a close working relationship with the president of Nigeria since way back as he being a governor of Lagos State, and other West African countries like the president of Togo. You know, these were most of like his foreign counterparts when he was president at that time. You know, and the Nigerian president, so played a very key role in terms of providing support, and funds to injecting funds into the Mahama's campaign, and other West African leaders at large. So he is known to be their friend, and everyone is trying to rally around the Ghanaian presidents based on the fact that they've been having a working relationship, and he had the backings of all these other West African leaders, which Dr. Bawumia doesn't really have at all. And looking at Traore coming, attending that inauguration, Burkina Faso is a neighboring country to Ghana, so I feel there are more of like some economic interest. Burkina is a gold-rich nation, and same as Ghana, so I feel there are more of like collaborations and partnerships that they will be having in order to boost the economy of both parties and also the West African region at large.
All right. What do you think Nigerians should learn from the election in Ghana? Is there anything that you feel should be a take home? Like the INEC will always say, well, we have learned our lesson in what happened in Edo State, so in Osun State we know what to do. Well, that's by the way. Let's get back to just the concluded election in Ghana. Is there anything you want Nigeria to emulate, or you feel there is nothing there?
Well, the problem about Nigerians is that Nigerians they don't elect their leaders based on merits. It's more of like your tribal or religious, backgrounds, or maybe your political affiliations that can determine your emergence of winning an election. But looking at Ghana today, these two candidates were coming from the same northern region. One is a Muslim and the other is a Christian. Ghana has tried as much as possible to have a Muslim, president, which they've never had. But they had to ditch, the Muslim community had to ditch their own, brother, in supporting the Christian candidates, because they are looking at merits, they are looking at competency in this case. But down in Nigeria, nobody cares about merits. It's all about your religion and your tribal background, and it's not really good for us, and that's why we're still here. We haven't witnessed any form of like progress or development over the decades. The issues of tribalism and religious bigotry is really hindering our development at large. We need to look at Ghana and adopt that sense of political maturity in order to drive and improve and develop our nation at large.
Okay, that's good. All right, let's get to Ghana now. Mahama is right there, and he's been sworn in. What do you think he should do? Because looking at Ghana, to whom much is given, much is expected. They actually voted for him because they were expecting so much from him. So as it is right now, what is the expectation? What do you think should be the first thing that he should hit the ground running with? Talking about the Ghana president, what do you think Mahama should start with? What do you think? I feel this is what the people need. That's the reason they voted for him. So he should he should just come up with policies that he feels would be beneficial to the entire citizenry, or there is a particular thing you feel he should do as a president after being sworn in?
Well, first of all, he needs to rally around his foreign counterparts within the West African nations and try to see how they can unite those military juntas together to bring them back to the ECOWAS economic bloc and see how we could partner at large instead of having this form of partnership with France. Most of the countries in West Africa were colonized by the French, and you tend to find out that since independence, they've never had any form of economic development and also in infrastructures, because they have taken over the resources of their lands, and it's to their disadvantage of these countries. And you can see they've kicked out the French troops from the military bases that they installed in these countries. And the latest was Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast is the president of Ivory Coast was someone who was rallying around the president of Nigeria, and it was against the military juntas. But looking at this situation today, I don't really blame the military juntas, though coups are known to be treasons. You get it's a treasonable offense, but in this case they're trying to protect their own country. Look at Chad, look at Niger, for example. Nigeria, the president of Nigeria happens to be the ECOWAS chairman, so he needs to come together and go into a diplomatic move in order to bring these countries back, because West Africa is not longer what it used to be, because these three countries moving out of the ECOWAS bloc, for me, they have nothing to lose, because based on the partnership that they are having with countries like Algeria, because these are more of landlocked countries where they don't have access to seaports, but they are partnerships in order to rebuild their own nations at large. So I think Mahama needs to talk and advise his foreign counterpart, who happens to be the president of Nigeria, the chairman of the ECOWAS, to see how they can unite, because at this point in time we need unity in the West African region. We can't just keep when your foreign counterparts are getting rid of they're getting rid of the French and people, and you are still inviting them to your own lands to take over your mineral resources and be in control of that. And in that case, you are not independent, indirectly not independent as a nation. For a country to come and manage your resources, as a nation, you need to be able to manage your resources by yourself, because looking at the mineral sector, we have lots of geologists out there. Look at for ways to train them to see how we can boost the mineral sector.
That's for the Nigerian. But of what benefit do you think it will be? Of what benefit do you think the relationship between Nigeria and Ghana will be, the international relations between Nigeria? What do you think it's in for Nigeria? Now Mahama is there, and of course he is a friend of Nigeria, all right, as a matter of fact. He has won the election. Before now, I know Nigerians go to school in Ghana and all of that, but then, what do you see in terms of international relations? What's in? What do you think is going to be in for Nigeria now that he's the president?
Well, looking at the situation around, we're expecting some form of diplomatic partnership, in terms of economic activities, trade, education, because lots of our citizens travel down there to Ghana to acquire education, but you really find people from other West African countries coming down to Nigeria to acquire education. I know, and Nigeria also needs to look at the economic model of Ghana, because back in the days, the Naira was more stronger in terms of value than the Ghanaian cedis, and over the years they've seen how they could revive their economy through international corporations, and also at this point in time we need to restructure our foreign policies and come into partnership, especially trade facilitations and economic integrations within Nigeria and Ghana, because we are more close to each other. So at those point in time, there needs to be more of like economic reforms within these countries and corporations in order to boost our economies.
All right. That's so interesting. But then let's see what will happen. Let's see how it's really going to go between Nigeria, the giant of Africa, and of course Ghana. Congratulations to the new president of Ghana, and we wish him all the best, and everyone that has traveled there. Let's see what will be in for the various countries. But it's so good that there is this unity amongst these great nations of Africa. Well, thank you very much for joining us on Global Moment.
It's my pleasure, Ramsey.
All right, this is going to be the size of the first conversation as we step into the second conversation, and that's going to be after this break. Stay with us.